our YouTube page.
Awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's your boy, Souls of the Job and Tears podcast, and we are back with Coffee Talk with Friends. All right. I've been gone for a while, but I decided to bring a good friend on board. This is Adam from Foundation Radio, and we're about to chop it up. We're going to switch it up this season. We're going to talk about the news, what he loves in wrestling, what he hates in wrestling, and also his hot coffee take. Ladies and gentlemen, Adam, welcome, brother. Welcome.
Sir Wilkins, thank you so much for having me, sir. It is a pleasure on this beautiful Sunday morning. I appreciate you having me and letting me come by and talk my talk, if you will. Speak my truth. So
no, it's all good. So let's start off with a little bit of news first.
All right.
What's running wild right now in the news is the WWE releases. I think they said it's been about 70 releases so far.
Yeah, something along those lines. Something in that realm, I think.
Between last year and this year, something of that nature, right?
And actually, I think it might be over 100 now at this point. So
if anybody's watching it, please comment below the exact number if you have the exact number. So there's been a lot of releases. A lot of people losing their jobs. A lot of people having to refigure out what's the next move in their career in professional wrestling.
Right.
So the big bad wolf right now is Nick Khan. Second bad wolf is Vince McMahon. So let's talk about it. What do you think about the whole release situation?
Well, so it's kind of multi-tiered, right? So I think for me, the three biggest surprises were Bray Wyatt, Aleister Black, and Braun Strowman, all for sort of different reasons. I was sort of shocked by Selena Vega as well when she was released in 2020, but obviously now she's back, so we don't really have to include her in the conversation. I just think she's going to tear up the women's division. I think she's fantastic. So I think I'm glad they brought her back into the fold. I think the program that they have with her and Bianca is going to be fire. I think for me, obviously the biggest one, the elephant in the room is Bray Wyatt. That one doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I did an episode on Foundation Radio, which can be found in the archives at foundationradio.net, about Bray Wyatt. And did you like how I did that there? Yeah. I was a special episode I did about Bray Wyatt and some of the things that have been said about him in public, specifically in regards to mental health. Now, I prefaced it by saying I don't know Bray Wyatt personally. I don't know his story. I don't know his background. But I know that when I lost my best friend in 2012, my life went off the rails. And the crux of the conversation was, I can't imagine being one of the biggest superstars in professional wrestling, mourning my best friend publicly. Now, this guy is also, you have to remember, this guy is also like the second highest merch seller next to the NWO. This guy is a crossover star at this point. And he was just very suddenly released, cleared for action the Thursday before he was let go from the company. So I think there definitely is something more that's underneath the surface that's going on with this. I don't know if it's a situation where he was felt creatively stunted, which we can obviously talk about that for hours about the way that the Fiend was handled just in the past 2 years. I don't know if he was just in a position where he was like, I need a break. I just can't do this anymore. And then eventually he'll come back. I don't know. And I think until we really know, a lot of these, different sites and places that are talking about it, it's all speculation. As far as Braun Strowman goes, I was very surprised about that because of the fact that he is a champion. He's a certified star. Whether or not you like Braun Strowman or not, you can't deny the fact that the guy's a star. And it was just a shock. It was very, very surprising. And I think a lot of that had to do with his budget, his price, his price tag. Aleister Black was confusing because they had just started all of those brand new vignettes with him, and then the Black Mass to Big E, which I thought was going to build a brand new program. So part of me is there's two schools of thought for me with this. The first one is that they may be selling. I don't know how true that is. There's a lot of things that maybe aren't really lining up with that, but it's very possible that they are trying to trim the fat in order to make the books look better. The other part of this is, and Eric Bischoff has said this before about Vince McMahon having a fiduciary responsibility to his shareholders, right? Vince McMahon's job is to make money for the shareholders that own the shares of the company. If they're looking at their roster sheet and going, well, there's 300 talents on this list, but you're only using 78 of them over the course of 6 to 8, 12 months, why do you have such a bloated talent budget? They're starting to really look at things and cut them down. So The NXT releases were very, very surprising. I think Bronson Reed and Jake Atlas were the ones that really stuck out to me, just because of things that have been said about them in public and sort of their storylines and story arcs. But I don't know, man. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think that they're going to sell, or do you think this is more of like what a Bischoff comment was?
I think it's more of a Bischoff comment. We all got to understand Nick Khan was brought in to make WWE money.
Right.
From what I hear, I could be wrong. Everybody who's watching this is in the comments. Please let me know if I'm wrong. I think he was the liaison between them getting the Fox deal, and then Vince saw what he did with that and was like, "Ooh, you can make me money," and brought him on board. Very smart business move on that part.
Absolutely. And that's his entire goal is to keep the company profitable. Now, when you look at the books and you look at their numbers, it's like, well, they already are insanely profitable. So what exactly is the end goal for them? And that's where I think there's that like real question is, okay, well, the company is profitable through the pandemic, right? Through the hard parts of the pandemic. Well, hard parts because we're all going back. But through the initial hard parts of the pandemic. So what is the end goal for Nick Khan and WWE in general?
I think it's to make more money, to make the company as profitable as ever. Because, so let's think about it. And I'm going to talk on both sides of the coin on this one. They're going back into touring per se, because we don't know if that's going to happen at 100%.
Right.
That costs money. Also, when they were touring before the pandemic, house show numbers were down. So I think they're like, yo, we got to trim the fat, like you said, and try to be as profitable as ever. Now, where could we cut costs at? All right, we have this bloated roster of 300, 400, I don't know the exact numbers, right? Because remember, NXT was always a loss for WWE. They never made money off of NXT. Literally, you get picked up by NXT, you get a stipend, you get a little check. They pay for a lot of stuff down there. And remember, NXT was supposed to expand. There was supposed to be NXT UK. We have that, but even bigger in NXT in the UK. It was supposed to be NXT like Latin America, NXT Japan. Then the pandemic happened. So you're like, oh shit. So let's talk about the three people that you mentioned. You mentioned Bray, you mentioned Braun, and you mentioned Aleister Black. All of them, face value, like, yo, what the fuck?
Yep.
So let's try to dive in a little bit. Braun's contract was ridiculous.
Insane money. Like stupid money.
Stupid. He was making, I'm gonna say this, like borderline Stone Cold Steve Austin money off his contract alone.
Yeah.
And
which is crazy, right? Which is crazy, right? To think about somebody like, and again, like you think about it, it's like Braun Strowman making Stone Cold money, which in hindsight makes a little bit of sense just based on some of his programs and some of the things he did. But like, he hasn't been in a big program since what, like 2018 with Brock Lesnar? Was that 2017 or 2018? Yeah. And the dude was white fucking hot. He was white hot then. So like, I get the name brand appeal, but for like Stone Cold money?
Yeah, and I could be exaggerating. People might be like, no, he wasn't. I could listen. He was making a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
And the way that, so this is my thing. They were like, yo, they're looking at everybody as dollar signs, not as people.
Yep.
And I think that's the biggest issue. Us wrestling fans, we're more connected because we see them as people. We see them as like just guys that we like and women that we like. But when you look at it, Braun's contract was fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
So his merch is probably selling decent, but it's like, yo, we're paying him this much, and we have XYZ over here who gets paid way less, who's on TV every week, and who's getting a consistent pop or whatever. Now, let's get rid of him. This contract's too big. We can do without him. Right. And the thing is, we can always bring him back.
There's the
and we can
key.
bring him back for cheaper.
There's the key. And this is what another thing I wanted to talk about, which I'm sure we'll get into, but the AEW aspect of these 3 releases, right? So Braun Strowman obviously feels as valuable as what the numbers are in his contract, right? And rightfully so. Like, right, like you should always be your own like champion and your own cheerleader. You should always try to get as big of a bag as you can, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Braun Strowman's going to negotiate with fucking AEW. Anybody who wouldn't negotiate with AEW would be brainless, right? Like, go and get your money. But will Tony Khan pay the number for Braun Strowman? He may pay it,
but
he may pay it
close.
He may pay it for Bray Wyatt, but he won't pay it for Braun Strowman, right? I mean, that's just like, and again, I know nothing about the contract negotiations or anything else, but we're speculating, right? But if you're looking at it from a purely business standpoint and a creative standpoint, what exactly can you do with Braun Strowman that wasn't done in WWE? You're going to give him the heavyweight belt? Sure, give him the AEW world title. Who's he going to go up against? Jungle Boy?
So
Orange Cassidy and Braun Strowman? There's no fucking money. I don't want to see that shit. I don't want to see him do that.
AEW needs a second show.
Yes.
And Rampage is not enough.
No.
Rampage should be 2 hours, and it should be 9 to 11.
Agreed.
That's what and you know what? And this is not they're going up against no.
No, it's nothing like that. It's
the mere fact they are bloated with talent over there. And I've said this before, I'll say this again. They have a lot of great talent over there.
Absolutely.
We cannot deny that.
Absolutely.
So to go back, we looked at Braun.
Oh, right, yeah.
And we're saying, okay, Braun, contract is fucking huge. He needs to go. This is ridiculous on the books. Now, Aleister Black, Malachi Black now.
Tommy End. All of these different names. Yeah.
What are they calling him actually?
Malachi Black. Shout out to Malachi Black, though. We love you here. Yeah.
Tommy End on the first
end. They're like, oh, Tommy End. They're like, no, wait a minute. That's Malachi Black. I'm like, guys, let's get it together here. Yeah. Can someone, Excalibur, Mr. Announcer of the Year, you can't get the fucking name right. Okay, that's fine. Okay.
So we look at Aleister Black, and it's weird because he was in a program.
Right.
And he was building up a program. I think I'm not the biggest fan of Aleister Black, but I don't think his mic skills are that great, but his creativity, his aura, his character development is absolutely fucking phenomenal.
Absolutely.
One of the best I've seen in the past 10 years. And that's creativity. His mic skills ain't the greatest, but he doesn't need that.
He's the kind of guy that could be like Jake the Snake Roberts. Because think about what Jake the Snake Roberts did really, really well. He talked quietly. He made you come in and listen to every word that he said. And he didn't have to say much because you knew you're listening. You're getting closer to your television. You're getting closer to listening to what this guy has to say. Mm-hmm. So if they would have built him more like that, or allowed him to sort of be that character, more along the lines of that character, which is what I feel like maybe that Dark Father thing was going to become.
Yeah.
Holy shit, dude. That would have been incredible. But he's a guy, again, that doesn't need to talk much. Just what he has to say is impactful.
But I think when he got released, I think they were looking at, once again, him as a number. They were looking at him as not Aleister Black in his program. It's like, yo, they were saying, if we cut him, are we going to lose a lot? And then I think they were like, you know what? We can get rid of him.
Yeah.
Now, the elephant in the room is standing right next to both of us right now is Bray Wyatt. You tweeted about this. You did a special episode on Foundation Radio about this. And first things first, I lost my best friend from a heart attack. And you also talked about you lost your best friend. Bray Wyatt lost his best friend. When you lose somebody close to you, and us men, our best friend is a real best friend. nothing against our female counterparts, the beautiful women in our lives. They have tons of best friends a lot of times. But for us, a male best friend, that's a sense of vulnerability to us.
Absolutely.
That's somebody that we share, and us men usually don't like to get vulnerable like that. And this is where I'm going. I've only cried 4 times in my life before my best friend passed away. I cried like a baby for 3 days straight. I couldn't go to work.
Yep.
Now, looking at Bray losing his best friend and being in the spotlight, and it has been rumors that he does suffer from mental illness. He was going through a lot, and he needed time off. But I think the business looked at it like, yo, we're paying him X amount of dollars, and he's not here, and our ratings are still up. Yes, he's selling a lot of merch, but we can get rid of him.
Right. We can cut the budget.
We can cut the budget. We can cut the budget. And this is something I've said. They're not looking at this from a human standpoint.
Mm-mm. They're taking that out of the equation because there's no reason for them to look at it from a human perspective, because if the goal is to make the most amount of money for the shareholders as possible, why would they throw the human component into that?
Exactly.
Why would they even give a shit? It's like, okay, this is Bray Wyatt. Okay, well, what else are we going to... Again, you can dig deep into the Bray Wyatt story, right? Like, you can dig deep into the Fiend character. I think there were 2 events that killed that character. 2 big events that killed that character, the upward mobility. The Hell in a Cell ref stoppage in 2019 and the Goldberg loss in 2020. I think the Goldberg loss was a bigger issue for WWE boxing themselves into a creative corner with the Fiend and not knowing how to get the belt off of him in a way that's not going to damage the character, right? For me, that's an easier pill to swallow creatively. And I know that's a really controversial take, and I'm sure I'm going to get my fucking head chopped off for that. But creatively speaking, I understood why they did what they did in Saudi Arabia between Goldberg and The Fiend, creatively. I'm not saying I agree with it or disagree with it. I say I understand from a creative standpoint, a storyline narrative standpoint. The Hell in a Cell thing, I mean, you got a guy who is white fucking hot. You have a character who is white hot, not unlike anything we saw in the heyday of, I dare I say, like The Rock or Stone Cold, a character who is transcendent through this organization. This character was on fire before he was literally on fire. He was on fire. They put him in that program with Finn Balor. They set him up with Seth Rollins. I think they hot-shotted him into the title picture way too quick. But The Fiend, for me, is a character, again, like we can keep going back to Jake the Snake Roberts or even Rowdy Roddy Piper. These are characters that don't necessarily need gold around their waists. These are not characters who need belts. They don't need championships, especially somebody like The Fiend. What the fuck are you putting a belt on him for? He doesn't need this shit. What does he need this? Like, he doesn't need the belt. Don't give him the belt. There's no reason for it. And now you're putting him in a program where there's, and again, this ties into the larger part, which I'll talk about in a second. There is no logical or believable opponent for The Fiend, right? Because Aleister Black's not really doing that at that point yet. You know, Daniel Bryan, they hadn't really started the picture with The Fiend yet. The Miz, I guess, maybe. But now you're out of these options. How do you get yourself transitioned from The Fiend to somebody else if the plan is to put the belt on Roman Reigns? How do you do that effectively? There isn't a way to do that, so you have to do a smash finish with Goldberg, and it sucks, and it sounds ridiculous, and I'm sure a lot of people think it's ridiculous, but it just, I guess, in a creative way, the way that my mind works, it's like, well, there really wasn't any other way to do this effectively. You're going to hurt one character. You're going to hurt one gimmick here, and unfortunately, The Fiend was the sacrificial lamb there. I don't think the character ever recovered from it. I don't think the character ever recovered from the Hell in a Cell loss, and I don't think the character ever recovered from the Goldberg loss. And I think everything that they did, they just, and again, obviously the pandemic, the pandemic threw a lot of things, a wrench into the wheel with a lot of situations. Again, another controversial take, Sir Wilkins, which is what I do at Foundation Radio, is controversial takes. I think the Firefly Funhouse match is one of the best things creatively I've ever seen in my life, not just in wrestling, but as far as like story structure, storytelling. I thought it was incredible. And I think it's the gold standard for what potentially they could do in the future. And I'll defend that until the day I die. But I think after that point, when you see this character and you do all like the fucking, what's it called? The supernatural shit with the, Lily and Shayna Baszler and all this storyline. And like, you can do that in the Thunderdome, but how does that translate? And again, I think that was part of the detriment with The Fiend is how does that translate back into the crowd? So ultimately, I think they really did Bray Wyatt a disservice with that character. And I think possibly it could have been something where they were like, we don't really know how we can fix this creatively.
I think it was because he was gone for a while, like I said, and creatively, I think they saw Bray as unbreakable.
Right.
I think they said in their eyes, they were like, he can lose and he'll still be on fire. And I think the problem with that is because that was his whole career. Creatively, they felt that he was so good that he can eat losses and still be on top. But us as fans who are a little too smart, we're like, no, that's not going to work. Right. It weakens the character over time. But people over there is like, nah, he can take these losses and still be great because it showed how creatively he was. And he was a genius when it came to building this character up. But the problem is WWE, the honchos over there was like, no, we can have him lose and he'll still be great, which is a problem. And I also think the time that he took off, they felt that it wasn't a dent in ratings because he was gone.
Right.
And that's just this is just an opinion. This is not a fact. I think they saw it like that instead of seeing him as, he's a genius. Imagine what he can do with other wrestlers in the locker room. Yeah. Imagine how he can help us in general, besides just in the ring. And that's the thing I've been wrestling with because I just think they just see these people as numbers. And I understand that, like we've been talking about, but they don't see them as people, as growing this ecosystem in the WWE instead of it being so rigid.
Yes. And it speaks to the way that the organization works now. Back in the day, guys got over by talking. They went out there and said whatever the fuck that came to their mind. They gave them a basic idea and they went over and got themselves over. It wasn't a let's bring in creative writers that had never written a wrestling program before, because I don't want to say that people who are just creative writers shouldn't have that opportunity, right? I think wrestling is a very niche market and you need to have at least a baseline understanding of what you're doing when you walk into it, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with being a creative. I mean, look, I'm a creative writer and I love wrestling. I feel like either of the two of us could be good at structuring storylines. But if you have somebody that's coming like right out of college or somebody that's coming from like an NBC who's looking to transition into this world, you probably want to brief yourself a little bit on how the story structure works, right? Now, I think that part of it had a lot to do with the fact that Bray basically was, kind of given a lot of different angles that didn't really work for him with the character. But I think The Fiend would have been a great Goldberg style, come in, fuck shit up, and then I'm out, right? Which is why The Fiend didn't need the belt. Let him come in, destroy shit, and then I'm out of here. That's it.
He didn't at all. But I think they just wanted to sell more merch.
Absolutely. And that's why they did it, is because they made a special belt and they have t-shirts and they have the puppets. And like, this is a merchandise machine. That's what people don't get about this.
But the thing is, a lot of people, and this is something that I want to talk about as well. Yeah. People was like, well, he sold a ton of merch. And why would they get rid of him? Even if he was on, I'm like, that merch sales, they could easily replace that.
Right.
Because it doesn't make up for their contract.
Right.
Because I'm still paying you hard cash. Yes, you're making me a ton of money on merch, but if I get rid of you, I can still have your t-shirts online, do a fire sale on your t-shirts and get a ton of money off.
And I own the likeness to the character, and I still own all the IP, the intellectual property for this entire character. I own the likeness, I own the name, I own all of it. So I'm going to market this shit. You think they would go back to the 90s, guys. Go back to the 90s and watch what they did with Diesel and Racer Ramon. Like, they did the same fucking shit back then where they tried to pass it off to the audience that these guys are coming back and they were the fake Diesel and fake Razor. It's like, it's the character, it's not the person.
Exactly, because I can still sell that belt that's online. I can still sell everything online, and I don't need you to be in. Because the thing about it, I remember Sean Waltman, aka X-Pac, he's doing an interview, and they were like, "Yo, you probably get a lot of money from merch." So he's like, "Not really. It's like 0.01 on the dollar type of thing, like some ridiculous number." So yeah, you're selling me merch, but I don't need to pay you anymore as a wrestler.
Right.
That is off my books now.
Now I'll give you this money on the side. But again, somebody like Scott Hall can say, "Oh, I made 6 figures last year on just NWO merchandise." So first of all, I want to know what that guy's deal looks like. But second of all, like, it's all about how the deal is structured going forward.
But I'll tell you this. You're making money, but so am I. Yes, your shirt is selling. You're making. I have to pay you out your cut, but the thing about it, I'm getting a cut of it as well. So we're both benefiting off of it.
Everybody wins. Everybody wins.
Contract, an actual contract, you're only benefiting.
Right.
Because I have to pay you.
Yep.
And you can see the bigger picture, and there is a bigger picture. I pay you, you make more merch, sell more merch, but think about that's still on my books.
Yeah, this money is I'm still paying X amount of dollars to you for you to provide me a service. I don't need you to provide that service for me anymore when you've already given me the creative content. You've already given me the IP ownership of the character and of the likeness and of the. Why do you think these guys come in and Vince McMahon and creative give them a different name? It's because he now owns that name. The Dudley Boys, that was a huge thing a couple of years ago, probably close to 15, 20 years ago now, when they left WWE and they couldn't use the Dudley Boys name, is because they were under the assumption that they owned the rights to it from Paul Heyman, and Paul Heyman never gave them the rights, or some kind of crazy shit happened, and they couldn't use the Dudley Boys name. So that's why they became 3D in TNA. But it's the same thing. They're like, well, what are we supposed to do? We built our entire career, 20 some years as the Dudley Boys, and we can't be the Dudley Boys anymore. You know, it's the same shit.
This is the business side of things. This is how business works, and it's fucked up. And I still don't believe Bray should have been released, but I'm looking at it from the business side, and it's completely fucked up. Once again, let's move on past the main roster type of the releases. Let's move on to NXT. That just recently happened. Yeah. We saw a bunch of names. I think it was like 12 to 20 names that got released from
something crazy. I think it was 12
13, from NXT. And one of the biggest names was Bronson, Bobby Fish. And
Jake Atlas was another one.
Yeah, Leo Ruff.
Yep.
He just got released as well. One of the biggest things I've been saying about NXT, they're lacking blockbuster talent. NXT, and funny thing, Finn said it when he went down there. NXT is Broadway. NXT is that beautiful Broadway play you go see with the family. It's absolutely amazing. It is the arts of acting. It is beautiful. You go there, the seats, it's a smaller type of feel. It's very intimate. You love every bit of it. But it's expensive.
Yep.
And I've said this repeatedly over and over again. That's what they were missing, blockbuster talent.
Yes. And that's what WWE is missing in general. This can just not just with NXT, not just with AEW. When was the last time that you felt hyped, felt excited about seeing a character on television week after week after week? Take the Fiend out of the equation, because that's an anomaly.
I'll take the only thing that we have right now is Roman.
Yeah.
But he's not. He's on the cusp of being there.
Yeah.
But he's not there yet. And you are right. I've always said this before. The problem with WWE, they treat their wrestlers like NFL superstars.
Right.
And for people who don't know what I mean by this is the NFL is all about the Shield, which is the NFL. Ironic, I'm using the word the Shield. The NFL brand comes first, then the players. And the reason why is because you can't see the players' faces. They all got their helmets on, blah, blah, blah. And they'll build up to certain stars if you win. Now, the way that they should go about it is like the NBA. The NBA, everybody's a superstar, everybody's a star, the superstars are mega superstars, they're crossover appeal, they got all of this because the NBA is about their players. And the reason why I say they should do with the NBA, because you can see their faces. You can get connected to these players because you know how they look and who they are.
Yeah.
WWE, and I understand the reason why WWE does it, because you have people leaving.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm a superstar here. I'm gonna head out.
Yeah.
To go do another project. We saw it with The Rock. We saw it with like 4 people leaving at one time with the Ruthless Aggression era. Remember that?
Yep.
Cena was the only one left. Cena talks about it all the time.
He was the last one.
And I think WWE was like, yo, we can't do this again. We can't make nobody white hot. But I think they're slowly starting to step out of that.
Because I think their business model is failing. Their business model is failing without somebody like a John Cena, without somebody like The Rock, somebody like Stone Cold. Roman Reigns right now, and if you would have asked me this last year or even the year before, that I would be someone, bullshit with my kids and being like, guys, it's 9:46 a.m. Have we acknowledged our tribal chief yet? Like I say shit like that all the time, and I have a Roman Reigns t-shirt, and like I fucking love the character. If you would have told me this a year and a half, I'd be like, you're insane. Shut the fuck up. There's no way that's possible. But that, I think a lot of that situation it speaks a testament to not just the patience of Roman Reigns, but also the creative genius that is behind Paul Heyman. And I think Paul Heyman has way more to do with that character getting over than anybody else has ever done with Roman Reigns. And that is a fact. Okay. But outside of Roman Reigns, who else do you have? You are building every person in this organization to be a superstar, but you're not giving them the tools to be a superstar, and you are kneecapping them effectively. You have a ton of incredible talent in this company. It's just an insane amount of talent in this company, and a ton of people who could easily get over. But you also have a ton of people that could easily be in a mid-card position, tearing up the Intercontinental scene, tearing up the United States title scene. You have basically a dead tag team division, which you could merge those belts and create something brand new with that division. Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like the emphasis is too much on the fact that everybody that comes in is a superstar, and not enough on the fact that these people aren't could be superstars. Does that make I'm trying to make sure that makes sense when it comes out.
Everything that you're saying makes sense, and it's something that we as wrestling fans have talked about for a long time. I just think they're, like you said, they're stuck on their model, and it has worked for them, but they haven't. In real talk, they haven't evolved their model for the current day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Social media is a huge thing. You have anything that's going on outside of just, the internet. You have so much going on when it comes to that. And to be honest, it's going to sound crazy. They should have never released Lana.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think that could have been something that they could have utilized, like with TikTok and some of the other apps that they've been using, and bring integrating something I talked about recently with Alfred Cunningham from Forbes.com was integrating Black culture into WWE, which is where they are succeeding leaps and bounds ahead of AEW, right? Mm-hmm. But also on top of that, they're also integrating brand new forms of technology, right? TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, all these apps that everybody's on right now. They are integrating those into their portfolio or whatever, their internet presence. Lana was an internet presence with TikTok. with the videos she did with Naomi, the videos that she did with Nia. Like, these are things that they could have utilized and could have utilized her specifically for that option.
But then this is what I talk about, the human side. Like getting personal with these people, finding out what they do best.
Right.
And pushing them to do better at what they do best. So we understand that Lana has social media on lock. Let's have a conversation with her. Let's talk to her. Let's see how we can grow this in a bigger way.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say is that AEW has a lot of superstars. And that's why they're growing, because they have a lot of superstars coming together. Nobody's a megastar over there.
But now they run the risk, Sir Wilkins. They run the risk of having too many people, too many cooks in the kitchen, and not enough space for everybody.
Of course.
Think about it this way. AEW's big thing is we're not going to be a WWE light, and we're going to be different, and we're going to have our homegrown stars. And, then they put the fucking belt on Chris Jericho. Okay, got it. Okay, let me suspend reality for a second on what you guys said, and we'll just say we're going to put the belt on Chris Jericho. Oh, look, we're putting the belt on Jon Moxley, another former WWE guy. I get the idea of building equity in your company. I completely understand this as a business, but your business model up front is we are going to be different than WWE. We are not going to build our company around former WWE stars. We're going to build it around Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks and, who else? Jungle Boy, Orange Cassidy, all of these indie darlings that everybody keeps raving about. And here they are doing the exact same thing that they weren't going to do. So now they're bringing in Aleister Black, which, again, I love. I don't want anyone not to eat. I don't want anybody to misunderstand what I'm saying. I don't want anybody not to eat. I want these guys to go and be creative. Well, Sir Wilkins, the one guy that I would like to not eat, not to make sure he didn't eat, and that's because he's a homophobe. But everybody else is fine. I just, there is going to come a time where if Tony Khan continues to pick up all of this talent, they're going to really seriously run the risk of shooting themselves in the foot about creating organic talent. Everyone wants to talk about homegrown talent. You're running the risk of losing that opportunity. Kenny Omega is a great example of somebody that they could build their brand around as a homegrown talent. And the reason is that everybody if you are a wrestling nerd like we are, we know who Kenny Omega is. But the layperson may not know who Kenny Omega is. And if you're trying to build a new fan base, that's a great way to start. Hangman Page, there's a great homegrown talent. He has the potential to be a Sting level character gimmick for AEW. Mm-hmm. The person who the flag bearer for AEW. But now you're bringing in guys, you have Christian Cage, you have Aleister Black, you have a lot of these guys that are coming in and are now going into these title pictures and going into these big events. What happens to these guys that you're working with? You know what I'm saying? What happens to these guys that you are putting in and building your company around? You run the risk of bloating too much. So you have to find that again with CM Punk and Daniel Bryan. What are you going to do with Daniel Bryan and CM Punk that hasn't already been done? I don't give up. I don't want to watch him fight Darby Allin. I don't give a shit about that at all. What are you going to do that's going to make me want to tune into this and see it? That's going to keep me captivated to this. And it's not to shit on CM Punk or Daniel Bryan. It's just what am I getting invested in? What do you think? The
only way this works, and this is AEW, Impact, and New Japan. They sit down and go, hey, let's multiverse the shit out of this.
Right.
That's the only way this works. They might be able to do it, but I haven't seen anything of them doing it. But we spoke about news heavy, so we're going to move on to the next segment of where I want to talk about what are you currently loving in professional wrestling right now?
So Roman Reigns, obviously, is probably for me the hottest thing that's in wrestling right now, bar none. Roman Reigns' character development, the dynasty storyline, the head of the table shit. I mean, you just can't get better than that right now. Mm-hmm. The fact that the Usos are involved, And the fact that he's just running through everybody on the roster. I mean, from The Fiend up through Finn Balor, it's incredible. They're just feeding people to him. And this is how you build a dominant champion. I don't think Cena's going to be the one to topple him. I think, and I've been convinced of this from the very beginning, that Drew McIntyre is going to be the guy to knock off Roman Reigns from the top.
Ooh, really?
Because Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns have history from the last year at the Survivor Series when they were both champions. And Drew McIntyre is at his best when he has a fight ahead of him. And what better person to build again, to give him that arc, to give him run back up, than Drew McIntyre? Who else is there? There's nobody else to do it. You're not going to pull Bobby Lashley off of his program and put him in with Roman Reigns. That don't make no fucking sense. You know, like, who else is there? It's Drew McIntyre. And I would be, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I would be very surprised if I'm wrong on that. Now, Bobby Lashley's character is incredible. I think we've talked about this before, where the way he demolished The Miz for that title win and the way he demolished Kofi Kingston recently at Money in the Bank. I mean, like, that's how you build a champion. That is how you build a dominant ass-kicking heel. And I just love the storyline. I again, controversial take, I'm kind of enjoying the Goldberg thing. I kind of dig it. I like how they're
Why are you enjoying Goldberg?
I like it because they're incorporating different elements of Goldberg's character, right? They're acknowledging on the nose, like, hey, Goldberg, you're too old for this shit. Stay out of the way, right? They're not shying away from that. They're now involving his kid in this as well. So they're like building this sort of, it's not just a bing bang, you know, wham bam, thank you, ma'am, with Goldberg, right? They're actually building equity in the storyline. Do I think Goldberg goes over on Lashley? No, I don't think that's what happens. I think what happens is Goldberg and Lashley have this gigantic blowout fight. They have this huge brawl. Lashley goes over. Big E cashes in with the Money in the Bank briefcase. That's how I see this playing out. Obviously, Big E is fantastic. I wish there were things that I enjoyed right now about AEW, and I'm really trying hard. I'm not big on the deathmatch stuff. You know, I love the idea of Nick Gage. I thought the build from Nick Gage and Matt Cardona was really wild. So I kind of enjoyed that. But, like, the pizza cutter shit, like, that is a little too much for me. I can see how people would like that. But, like, for me, it's like, I'm not about that anymore. I have a hard time with AEW. I really do. I have a hard time connecting with the product.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know if it's just something where obviously there is a personal stake in there for me with one of the people that they continue to push on the program and is involved with some of their major champions. And that is a sticking point for me. So it's hard for me to support someone like that. But I think there's just something missing for me. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because I've been forced, and not forced, but like I feel like people are forcing me to like it. They're not giving me reasons why to like it. They're just shoving it down my face. And I think the rabid fan base of AEW makes it difficult for me to like it, because it's like, if you have criticisms, oh, fuck you, you stupid fucking, you e-drone or whatever. It's like, guys, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just asking why they let that botch air on television. Like, you can ask these questions and still be a fan of wrestling, I promise. There's just something about it that I haven't been able to connect to. And I try every week. I genuinely do. I try every week to get into it. And there's just something that just isn't there for me. And hopefully, eventually I'll get there. Obviously, if CM Punk joins the company, that'll definitely be something I want to watch. But overall, those are my favorite things as of right now. I love the Zelina Vega, Bianca Belair storyline. Bianca and Sasha too is going to be incredible. I was enjoying the Liv Morgan build as well. I would prefer to see more of that. I think Britt Baker's a great heel. I think she's a great women's champion in that division, and I think she has the potential to light it on fire. So yeah, there's a lot that I like, but there's also a lot that I'm not so hot on.
So what do you really hate right now?
What do I really hate? The fact that Shayna Baszler's not in the title picture. I think that's the drizzling shits. Shayna Baszler should be an ass-kicking machine. And I don't understand why they don't have her in the mix yet. Maybe because they're still building with the Rhea Ripley and Charlotte storyline. But I think she definitely could be someone who is a dominant ass-kicking champion. There isn't really much. Again, it's With guys like Omega and some of the shtick and the schlock that they do, like the Space Jam thing, guys, like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, why are we spending all this money to do this? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. It's not a crossover, like, marketing aspect gimmick. You're not making any money on this. Like, what is this, guys? Like, this is just stupid shit, right?
It's a bunch of, so this is, I would love to work with Tony Khan. I'll be honest with you. Because right now, he has an unlimited amount of fucking money.
For now.
So you can get a lot of shit done with him right now. This is the pure essence of a startup company.
Yeah.
Where you spend a ton of money on shit, you're like, yo, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Look, because just so you can get things over.
Yeah.
And I give it 2 more years, maybe 3. When they're going to start really cutting some stuff out.
Absolutely. They're having a blast right now.
They haven't been profitable yet, but TNT is loving them, per se, so they can start doing shit. So to get to the point, I would love to work for them because I know I can get whatever the fuck I want out of them.
You could literally squeeze it dry.
Yeah,
all that money out. Yep.
There was an interview that was done on him. I forgot which company did it. And Tony Khan said his dad was just like, yo, I have a ton of money that's going to be yours, so why don't you blow it on something?
Yeah. Spend some of it now. Yep.
Yeah. Why not? And once again, I don't hate AEW. I fucking love so much that they're doing. Some stuff I just, I'm just like whatever about it, but they spend a shit ton of money and they're going to have to cut that budget sooner or later.
They're going to have to make some really difficult decisions coming up. I wouldn't say it would even be in the next 2 years. I think it's going to be within the next 12 months. They're going to have to make some really difficult decisions because here's the thing, right? And then I know we got to wrap up, but here's the thing. They just dumped an 8-figure amount of money into a video game. What happens when the video game shits out? What happens when it's not as successful as they imagine it being?
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to buy the video game? Do you have enough brand equity to move your video game past your diehard fans? Do you have enough diehard fans to buy this video game in a way that's going to be profitable for you? You're now haven't been profitable. Your company hasn't been profitable in 3 years. And again, these are not criticisms. These are just genuine, legitimate questions. And I'm asking. And again, Tony Khan, anyone knows Tony Khan, I'm looking right in the camera right now. You have an open invitation to come on to Foundation Radio and talk to me about the business and your company at any time that you'd like to. You let me know. That invitation stays open until you come on the show, sir. Now, how are you going to maintain profitability if you are already cutting into your profit margins and your overall net expenditures by dumping in a 10 or an 8-digit amount into a video game development? Where are you going to make up the difference? Where else are you going to cut into your budget, into your general expenses? How are you going to make the books work? How is this going to happen? Startup companies typically have about 5 years to be profitable. And within the first 3 years whether or not they're going to. AEW is now on year 3. I'd be willing to give them another year because of the pandemic. You can't really judge anyone on the pandemic budget because it's just not fair. But how are you going to make up the difference? These are general accounting, basic economic numbers. How are you going to make this up in a way that is going to continue to keep your company in business? And the only way you're going to be able to do that is to cut expenses somewhere else. If the video game flops, you are going to see them make a ton of really difficult cuts. Do I want it to flop? Of course not. I want everybody to eat. But I don't know what the equity is, the brand equity, the name equity inside of AEW to move units like they would with a Call of Duty. Or, you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense? And you may not agree with that, and that's fine. But
no, so he said this, and nobody has ever talked about it. He said he is going to have to make some major cuts soon. He has said it. This may not be verbatim, but because the thing is, they're trying to be the good guy in the situation between them and WWE. because he mentioned, and once again, I don't know the exact quote. He was like, yeah, it was a pandemic going on. We should have made some cuts, but we didn't because we wanted to still be working. And that's a beautiful thing. I'm not even going to deny that. That was fucking awesome what they did.
Great thing,
they had a lot of independent wrestlers come down, do AEW Dark. They got paid off of it. Fucking awesome. But he has said that he's going to have to make some serious cuts soon and to make some serious decisions where it's going to be like, yo, what do I do right now?
Yeah.
But nobody wants to talk about that because we're still in the honeymoon phase of this company.
Bingo.
And when NXT off of Wednesdays, they're officially consistently hitting over 1 million. So I want to, before we wrap up, we have some time. How can we fix NXT?
I don't think there's a way to do it.
Huh?
I don't think there's a way to do it.
Really?
Explain. I don't think there's a way to do it if you're going to continue to push the brand as a third brand.
Talk to me.
As a third flagship brand. When Dusty Rhodes was involved with this, when it was created, it was a developmental territory to help build new stars, not to make them on par with this current superstars. Because a lot of these folks, they're great, but you saw the reaction that Karrion Kross got when he came out. Not a ton of interest, right? A lot of things you could continue to work on. I think when they stop looking at NXT as a third brand and they look at it more as a developmental territory again and go back to sort of basics, I think you could fix that problem. But I don't necessarily believe that it's going to be corrected until you look at it the way that it was when Dusty was around.
Mm-hmm.
But I also don't know how much equity, I keep using that word, I guess it's the word of the day, equity, how much equity or concern Vince McMahon has with NXT. Does he care about NXT or is he more concerned about the main roster? You know what I'm saying? Like
he does care about NXT now. And I think
he does.
Because it's bleeding too much money.
Right.
I think now he cares.
Yeah.
And once again, I think we talked about it in pre-production. I don't know if we talked about it here. We talked about a lot of stuff, but the rumor is, and this is, and I'll give the credit to the person that said it, which is Dave Meltzer, is that they saw NXT as too indie and not something like blockbuster. And I've said this numerous times. WWE's flagship roster is blockbuster, Fast and the Furious 9, Godzilla, all those big blockbuster popcorn movies. While NXT is very much Broadway, independent, critically acclaimed movie that only 10 people saw, but for some reason it got a fucking Oscar nomination.
Exactly. Right. And that's AEW too. AEW is very much
trying to be blockbuster, but the thing about AEW, and I've said this, and I think I said this in pre-production or now, is that AEW is the Expendables.
Yes.
Where you have 10 B+ actors coming together to make a blockbuster movie.
Yep.
And
to make an A+ show. Yep.
It's not a bad idea because everybody's got to work together. It gives this feel of like, yo, we're a team and we're going to do this together.
Yep.
Yes, the Bucks, Kenny, are a little bit higher on the scale, but they're still not blockbuster.
Right. They're not at the very top of that.
They're not at the very top, but because of them and everybody else within that, you create this blockbuster-ish type of movie or show, whichever one we want to go for. So that's what they have. But NXT still had Broadway stars.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we can talk about Adam Cole is on the verge of becoming a superstar, but he's not there yet. Something is missing to get him to that level. I love Johnny Gargano. If anybody knows me, I love Johnny wrestling. But Johnny ain't blockbuster.
Samoa Joe's blockbuster, though. You don't think so?
Superstar.
Yes.
Superstar. We can't give him that. I love Joe. Joe's a star.
Love Joe.
But Joe's on the level of Don Cheadle.
Fair.
Where
he's not Downey. He's not Chris
exactly.
Evans.
He's not Robert Downey, but
right.
He's Don Cheadle, and I love Don Cheadle.
Now, let me ask you a question. As far as a follow-up for Samoa Joe. Do you think he could stay in NXT, build up some continual get his shit together kind of thing like what Finn Balor did, and then go back to the main roster and do what he came to do initially? Do you think that's possible?
No, that's stupid. Because if they're rebranding NXT, you keep Samoa Joe there.
Fair enough. If that's what the plan is, right? If the goal is now going to be
NXT, right, you keep Samoa Joe there. He's your new anchor.
Yeah, you build the company, you build it around Samoa Joe, and you
exactly. Yep. I keep carrying Cross down there.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we have to go back into the lab with Karrion Kross and figure out how to make him bigger than what he is right now.
Yeah. How do you create that character and push it out into the universe in a meaningful way? Because you saw it. You saw it when he came to Raw or SmackDown, whichever one he was on. Nobody
it was Raw.
Nobody cared. Nobody.
So how do we make people care?
You give him the tools and the resources necessary to be a dominant ass-kicking machine.
Yes. So this is my thing. If the once again, people who haven't heard this, supposedly the memo is no more people who starting in their 30s. They want young talent. They don't want smaller dudes. Everybody has to. This is supposedly what was said. They don't want no midgets. That's what they said supposedly. I don't know how true this is, but it's what Dave was saying. They're looking for big talent, and that is okay. So you know what? This is why I don't think they're selling. They just had tryouts in Vegas. They're about to have tryouts in Vegas.
Why would they be selling if they were going to be looking for new talent coming in?
Exactly.
Doesn't sound like that.
Shout out to my amazing co-host Janelle from HR. She mentioned this. And the little bit of connects I have in WWE, this person told me is that they're looking, because the person had asked me, hey, Wilkins, why don't you try out? I was like, I'm not ready to try out for WWE. Like, what the fuck? No. Just like, no. They want people who are not seasoned. They want people who they can easily build, who they can coach. So maybe you're right about the whole Dusty thing. Maybe they're going back to that type of feel.
That makes sense.
But I think, in my opinion,
think about that.
Leave NXT as a third brand.
Okay.
Lower the expectations. You know, I love sports. I'm gonna put it like this: blow it all up, which is what they're doing right now.
Yep.
Blow it the fuck up. Look at the roster that you have now. Maybe cut some more people. I'm not telling people to lose their job, but let's just look at the business side.
Call it what it is. Yeah.
You have Samoa Joe. You have Karrion Kross. Okay, those are superstars there that we could potentially build and do something with. Gargano is there. Let's keep him. Let's figure out what we could do with him. But let's get 5 to 6 people. 4 that would go straight to the heavyweight, the NXT title picture. Let's get another 4 that would be great for the North American title picture.
Okay.
Now we have a tag team division. That's hitting. Let's grow that even more.
Yep.
The show is 2 hours. And we're known for our women's division. Let's grow that more. But
not a bad idea.
They all need to sit down and look who is potentially could be superstars here. How can we change this whole thing to be more big budget feel? Because I said this numerous times, it felt too indie.
Yes. Yeah, it does. And that's
but that's what they wanted to do, because they thought that could go up against AEW, but it can't, because AEW is not looking at being an indie field. They want it to be a big budget
film. Yep. And that's the difference. That's the key, is that they wanted to be a big budget film with an indie division.
Yes. But the thing about it, they were competing with them, and it's like, yo, you're not competing the right way. You're not doing it right, because for a casual fan, if I watch NXT, I'm just like, oh, this is cool, but this is wrestling.
Yeah, this is the original shit. Yeah, this is where we are back in the 70s or the 80s,
that
right?
only works for live shows.
Yes. Absolutely.
We did Jobber Slam about a couple weeks ago. Shout out to everybody that came out for Jobber Slam. There's a lot of people it was their first wrestling show they ever been to, especially on the independent field. They were hooked because it's live.
Yep.
Live independent wrestling is top tier, but it's the same thing as going to a live Broadway show.
Yeah.
Can you watch a live Broadway show on television?
No.
It's not going to be the same feel at all. So I think what they need to do, and they're probably doing it already. I don't know much. Them sit down, break down, and see who can be superstars. They don't need blockbuster. Who can be superstars and how to make them superstars.
Yeah.
This is when, and then take some, like, you know what? Let's get some real advisors in there.
Yeah.
And try to see how they can blow, because Triple H needs to change the mindset. But that's just how I feel about it. Where can people find you? Because we got to go.
Yeah.
I was
going to say, my kids are beating down the door upstairs. I got to get them in the pool. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at This Is Goober. My podcast, Foundation Radio, you can find us anywhere you find your favorite podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify, iHeartRadio. This week, my guest is WWE Hall of Famer Diamond Dallas Page. An incredible conversation with DDP. I can't wait to release that to you. I got a lot of cool things coming down the pipeline as well. You can find me there. All of my archive is at foundationradio.net. That's exactly where you can find the show. Please feel free to subscribe. I've had Bill Goldberg on, Eric Bischoff, Sir Wilkins of the Jobber Tears podcast. It's a lot of great stuff to check out. I also have something really fun coming in the next couple of weeks, which I can't talk about yet, but I will, and I'll release it. But Sir Wilkins, thank you so much for having me join you today on Coffee Talk. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a whole lot longer than I expected, but I fucking love everything about it.
Yeah, man.
We will talk soon about everything. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is another great episode of Coffee Talk with Friends with the homie Adam from Foundation Radio, and I'll see you guys later.
Sounds good, guys. See ya.
Hold on.